So I grew up on a farm in South Australia, and when my family came in the very early 80s, South Australia was still a very much developing city, seeing the new influx of Asian migration into the state. My brother and I were the first Asian people to be enrolled in our school. So I grew up having to assimilate and adjust to a very different culture being at school to what we were taught being at home. It's a very different country Australia was back in the early 80s to what it is today. It's a very Asian girl's story. So I chose a course at university that wasn't available in Adelaide because I wanted to live the whole Australian dorm, living in a university thing, moving out of the home. And of course, you know, as coming from an Asian background, you don't do that until you get married. So I was planning this secret move across the state, hoping that, you know, here's a legitimate reason that I got into university. So it was quite an epic fail because my parents uprooted and went with me to Sydney. And that's how the entire Ho family ended up in Sydney in 1999.
And you settled here in this wonderful region of ours, the Fairfield local government area.
I did. So I settled in Fairfield, and I went to university and I did a health science degree because coming from an Asian background, anything other than being a doctor, a dentist or a pharmacist is not really deemed socially up there. So I studied radiography and orthoptics, and I went from one health science course to another, and I absolutely hated it. I didn't understand how pressing a button and taking an x-ray would fulfill me for the rest of my life. No offence to any radiographers. Fairfield local area has changed a lot in the last 20 years, and I think we've got so much diversity and so much talent. And I run all my businesses out of Fairfield because we've got so much talent here to harvest. And there's a lot of people that they graduate and they get jobs with large corporations and they kind of move out of southwest Sydney, and it's such a shame because we've got so much here, there's so much disposable income, there's so much talent, and really, you know, now I start my businesses on the foundation that I want to be able to support and keep local talent local. I sort of wasted several years at university. I went from one degree to another, absolutely hating it, because I didn't find a passion for what I was studying. And I realised that I was very passionate about business. I was passionate because I grew up my entire life with my parents and family telling me that I should get a degree, get a good job, marry a good, decent husband that'll look after me for the rest of my life. And I thought, I didn't want to do that because no husband's going to afford my Balmain and Prada shoes for the rest of my life. So, and I thought the only way to escape that that mentality is if I went out and I created something for myself. I created my own business. So I spoke to my parents and I took a gap year for university. I went into retail, and from that in 4 years, I grew it to 6 retail stores in Sydney. And that's when the internet shopping really hit Australia. And then I, by chance, fell into waste management and I became a garbo. So I went from leaving university to being in retail, and then to be able to tell my parents that now I want to pick up rubbish off the street. Can you imagine? At the time when I took over the company, it had been going for a year and it was losing $20,000 a month. Within the first month of taking it over, I was able to turn that around to a break-even point because of my knowledge and what I knew from running a small business. And from that point, we grew it to one of the largest privately owned waste management companies in the state, and the only one that's owned and operated by a woman. When you hear about success stories, you don't hear about the struggles. And I can tell you, for every one success that you get to achieve, there would be 3 to 10 failings. And I think throughout my journey, I've failed a lot, but I've been able to find the strength to get back up and keep going. Success is quite a lonely journey because nobody understands your vision and nobody understands what you want to do. you come up with an idea and people think, well, that's not going to work. If it's worked, it's worked. Really, no idea is a new idea. It depends on how you take it to the market, how passionate you are about it, and how long you keep at it. It's about finding gaps in the market and being able to fulfill those gaps. You'll find a lot of people along your journey, I call them energy vampires, because they're so negative, they suck you out of your enthusiasm. You all know them. You've got friends, you've got family, and every time you talk to them, you pitch to them about your idea, they'll suck the energy out of you. And when you walk away from it, you actually think, oh, maybe it's not such a good idea. But what you need to do is surround yourself by positive people, people that share your vision, people that share your journey, people that you can go to and say, you know what, I failed and I failed really miserably. What can I do? And they're able to help give you advice. Sometimes just having someone listen to you is quite good. My first retail store was in the Imperial Arcade, if anyone remembers it, in Pitt Street Mall there, before Westfields bought everything. And for a 21-year-old, it was quite difficult to deal with leasing managers and suppliers, and especially being Asian, because I looked so little. I was so small, and I used to always get the, how old are you question. And I think whatever you do, you need to believe in yourself, because you're going to find a lot of adversities in your life. Going into business or going into any big decision in your life, you'll find that at some point there's a light switch. There's a switch that you get to a point and you say, I'm going to do this because of something that's happened. And when that switch goes on, that's when you know that you're going to run with it. So you need to back yourself. No one is going to believe in you unless you believe in yourself. So I think through my journey, my biggest strength is my belief in myself. When I walk in there, even when I've got no idea what I'm talking about, I'll do the research and I'll pitch in the 5 minutes that I've got. And if anyone asks me anything, I've had questions thrown at me that I have no idea, I'd always say, I'll come back to you. And always come back to them. Because your words are the only thing that you can give them. If you don't deliver on your words, then there's nothing left of the relationship. When I started, I was 21. I didn't have a business plan. I didn't know what scaling was. I didn't know how to do a P&L statement. I knew nothing. But I think when you're young and when you're naive, it's quite a good thing because it cushions you from all the negativity. I just thought, I'll open up a retail store, I'll stock it with all these shoes, and if I can sell 3 pairs of shoes a day, I'm laughing. And that's all I knew. But I think as I grew, as the stores grew, I found other things to incorporate into my retail store. So it's all about innovation as well. But I think definitely it's a learning process. And when I started out, I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone to aspire to. And so I was kind of running this blind race. I didn't know where I'd be in 12 months. Actually, if you ask me now where I think I'd be in 12 months, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you. But it's important now that we have so many role models in our society, and you can't be what you can't see. So I think it's really important to look up to someone and aspire to them and watch what they do and how they do it. As an Asian and as a refugee and as a female, you know, Asian women are told and are taught at a very young age to be humble. You know, we never raise our hand up and say, we're fantastic, we've achieved these things. I think we are taught to be so humble that we don't believe that we've achieved amazing things. So if you can't raise your hand and step up and say you've done these things and how great you are, you're never going to be able to look back and see how great you've done. And when you share a simple story, it's incredible because you inspire others. Every one of us has inspirational stories to tell and to share. I think we just have to learn to raise our hand and say, we've done this, we've achieved this, and look back and think about how many other people are around us that haven't done as well as we have. I think it's resilience.
Yep.
You really have to have that resilience because along your journey, every other week, you'll find a hurdle. I've been through so many hurdles, and it's so easy to say, I can't do this anymore. This is getting really, really hard. Especially when you get to a point, and you'll find at each point in your career, there'll be a point where you turn around and say, nobody understands me, and I can't share this with anyone, because you're on this journey, and as an entrepreneur, you're on this journey, and it's actually a really lonely road, because when you're trying to succeed, you've got a lot of people that will try to take you down. But when you have succeeded, you've got a lot of people that will criticize your success. Yep. So I think you have to learn to have a lot of resilience, block out the energy vampires, and keep on your path. I think it's really important, and we'll all have those times, no matter what we do, whether we run our own businesses or whether we work for someone or whether we're aspiring to do something else with our lives. You'll always have these points in times where you think it's too hard, you can't go on anymore, but you have to remember the fire and the reason why you started. Pick yourself back up and keep going, because no one's going to do it for you. And if anyone knows waste management, when I first heard of it, I thought about a guy in his 50s with a beard, wearing one of those Australian cork hats, hanging down, in overalls, standing on rubbish. But waste management is such a different industry. It's a very close-knit industry in Australia, so you'll find your big 5 companies that are multinationals. It's not an industry that's easy to get into. It's a very old school industry, so most people in waste management started as garbos on the street and they moved up the ranks. There's no channels to bring up new talent. Everyone that you speak to in waste management will tell you that they fell into it.
You fell into it.
I fell into it. And I fell into it when I was 28. That was only 12 months ago.
How did you fall into waste management? What went from reading? How did you go into picking up rubbish?
So so my mentor, he kind of fell into it because he was asked to be a director of the company. And because he had to go overseas for a couple of months, he said, Lee, could you just fill in and help me make sure that everything's above board and I don't end up in jail when I come back? So I did that to help him, and as I got to learn the industry, I found how much money there is. And so I'm really passionate about money and shoes. So the more I learned, the more I got interested. And so 12 months later, I took over that fouling business. But I think the hardest for me when I first started was the fact that I was quite young compared to everyone else in the industry, and they weren't used to dealing with a woman. So I had to grow a lot of balls and swear like a trooper. And I suppose I had to talk the lingo. I earned the respect of my drivers by actually going out there and driving a truck myself, getting out there and emptying the bins with them when we had a breakdown at 3 o'clock in the morning. I shoveled shit off the ground. We were in Cabramatta one time, and I remember it was quite late in the night time, and we were in one of those car parks in Cabramatta, and there was a whole load of cardboard that was separated from the waste, and I was in a cardboard truck at this stage, and I was alone. So I jumped out of the truck. It was in the middle of summer, by the way. I picked it up and I just got splashed with all this water. Where does this water come from? Next minute, I realised that it's actually not water, it's urine. So someone had peed all over this cardboard. And I was standing, it was like midnight, in the middle of Cabramatta. It was empty, with the truck running. And I was covered from head to toe in urine. And I think at that point, that was one of my breaking points, because I thought, what on earth am I doing with my life? I dropped out of university. I went from shoes, handbags, and bridal dresses to now picking up crap on the ground, and I'm standing in the middle of Cabramatta drenched in urine. And at that point, I think I had a bit of a breakdown. And it took me about 20 minutes to recover and think, shit, I've got the rest of my run to do, so I better get myself together and pick up the rest of the cardboard. But yeah, it was never easy. Whatever I expected my team to do, I felt like I had to get out there and do it myself, because I don't expect to sit behind a desk and understand my business and understand what my guys go through every night when they're out there on the road. So I think having an understanding of it and sort of working with them from the ground up helped me grow my business so quickly. I wanted to create a platform whereby I can help share great success stories that you don't hear about in mainstream media. You know, within Southwest Sydney alone, there are such great success stories where people turn over from 10 to 150 million, but we don't hear about it. And you know, our high school children, at an age where they're growing into what they want to do as adults, and they're choosing career paths, and they're not aspiring to be entrepreneurs. They're aspiring to do courses that they don't really understand, that they've been told by their parents that this is what you should be doing. And so when I went home and told my mum, I'm writing a book, she looked at me and she said, well, Hillary Clinton didn't make millions writing her book.
J.K. Rowling did. J.K. Rowling. Open your amusement parks after that as well.
I've got to sit at Glory Jeans to write my book for 3 years later. So she said to me, yeah, Hillary Clinton did become a multi-millionaire by writing books. And just before I got into waste management, when retail was sort of going quite downhill, I rang my mentor, and I actually remember specifically saying to him, I said, Mel, I'm having a nervous breakdown and I know I'm going through a midlife crisis. And I remember his reaction. He laughed and he said, Lee, you're too young to be going through a midlife crisis. I said, no, Mel, you don't understand. I know what I'm going through. I'm going through a midlife crisis. So that was a Thursday night. So on Friday, we'd arranged for a pub crawl down George Street. And I remember after our third shot, we were smashed because we were party people. So we were sitting in the middle of George Street, and I was like to him, I need to do something else. I need to do something that doesn't confine me to one shop. And I wanted something that was scalable. And I think about 2 weeks later, he threw this opportunity at me, and I just grabbed it because I was really lost. And you go through a stage where you get so lost and you think, what do I do now? And I remember I had again one of those moments back in September last year. And I was sitting outside my office and I was talking to a very good friend, and I said, I'm going through another midlife crisis. I thought, what can I do with myself now? Like, I've built a successful business. I've achieved a goal of turning around a failing company. I've done this, I've done that. What now? Surely there must be something else out there for me. And I thought about it for weeks and weeks and weeks. And that's when I came up with Aspiring Promotions, because I wanted to provide a platform that wasn't available to me when I was started at 21. You can't be what you can't see. And unless these stories get brought to schools, get brought to the media, you don't hear of successes, you don't hear of adversities, you don't hear of why they are so successful and what resilience and what adversities they've had to go through in life to be as successful as they are. So I wanted to create a platform that could help bring these stories to the forefront of the media and help share it. Not just the white Anglo-Saxon success stories that we hear all the time. It's always the same people in the media that we hear about all the time. What about all these other great people, all these other great entrepreneurs? So that was a platform that I wanted to bring. To me today, I look back and I think how fortunate I am to have such a great family that support me and have supported me throughout my journey. I wouldn't be here today without their support. But I think importantly for me, I've come to understand what a great country Australia is and how fortunate we are to have the resources at our fingertips and to be able to tap into those resources. And for me, it's about giving back now. If I can share my story, if I can assist that one person, if I can inspire just one person and help them change their lives and they'll go on to inspire 3 more people, I think that's quite fulfilling for me. Throughout my journey and throughout my achievements, I think my biggest achievement to date would be about 2 or 3 years ago. I remember I was walking down Cabramatta and an Asian girl, she was only about 18, she ran up to me and she said, "Oh my God, Lee, I read about your story. You're such an inspiration to girls like me. Now I feel like I can go out there and achieve more and do what you do." And for me, that was the proudest moment of my life, because I know that I've helped push her and for her to believe in herself that she can achieve more. Just because we're from a migrant background, it doesn't mean that we can't step up. It doesn't mean that we can't achieve great things, because this country helps us and allows us to do that. We just have to find a voice, and when you can find that voice, you can help share the message.
Mind frame that you're in, it sounds like 2 times at least, one to sell the business, one to start your initial business. What did it feel like to actually, how did you actually get the confidence to do it?
I think for my very first experience of going into retail when I was 21, I remember when I was at university, I was working for a Korean lady, and at the time she had 4 or 5 stores in Pitt Street Mall selling fake handbags. At the time, fake handbags weren't illegal, by the way. You could just sell them at $300 a pop. And I remember at the time, my thoughts were always that, in my mind growing up, an entrepreneur was a man, an Anglo-Saxon man, in his 50s, with a beard, and really, really successful in a suit. And when I went to work for this Korean lady, she was the smallest lady. She was only about 1.5 meters. And she had the biggest hair, and she'd come to work every day buying a new outfit. She would literally walk into the shop and not look at the price, just pull it off the rack, throw it on. That was her outfit for the day. And she used to go out on lunches for that stretched 3 hours at a time. And I remember thinking, that's what I want to be. Why do I want to slave around in an office all day, 8 hours a day? I want to come to work pissed as well, and wear designer clothes and have nice bags and shoes. And that was my first experience. And actually it's funny, because I didn't even realize at the time that she became my role model. She became the blueprint to me of what success was. And I only reflected on it last year when I went to write my book as to how I started my journey and what pushed me. And I remember vividly now, she became the blueprint of success to me. And I remember when I went through my midlife crisis was when I had 6 stores. It was because I'd already bypassed a 5-store, and I didn't know what I wanted to do now with my life, because I'd bypassed the bar that I'd set myself. I want to start a business from my passion and from my knowledge. So never again will I invest $50,000 into any business. I just won't do it, because I think I want to guide the people I work with. I want to guide my staff and my team. That I think when you have the foresight, when you have an understanding, when you're passionate about something, there's other ways to do it, and there's other resources to utilize apart from just throwing money at everything. But more importantly, you have to be you have to be positive. Take on board all the things that can happen, and to mitigate and put roadblocks into what can happen and what you would do if they happened. You can always start. The internet is bringing the world to your doorstep these days. When people started businesses 20 years ago, we didn't have that resource. Today, I think emerging business owners and entrepreneurs are so lucky. You have the world at your doorstep, and how you choose to utilize that makes or breaks a business. People can't expect to open up a business these days and have customers walk through the door. It does not happen anymore. And you'll find that in the last 5 years, there are more multi-millionaires being created under the age of 25 than any other time before. And it's because the internet is now bringing the world to our doorstep. I know of a very emerging successful business called Tea Bags down the road here. Tea Bags team started 3 months ago with just a Facebook page. And today, you know, we're going to second, and by the end of the year will be 6 stores with just the Facebook page. So it's quite incredible. And partnerships such as you know, large companies. I know that Sephora, if anyone's familiar with Sephora, knocked on Teabag's door 4 weeks into the first Facebook page to be a partner in product launches. So it can happen, and it does happen, and multinationals are always looking for the next emerging thing that's different, that's not flooded the market, to partner with. And if you can take your product to the market and use the internet as your best friend, your success rate is so much higher. Connections and your network is very important. That's why there's a big saying that your network is your network. So make friends, partner, and spend time with people that can build you as people. People that help you succeed. People that will open up their contacts to you. Try to distance yourself from the energy vampires, because you won't have time for them, and you don't have time for negativity in your life. So surround yourself with positive people. But I think for me, where I am today, it's more about being able to inspire. So I love bringing on sort of uni students and high school students and mentoring them, and hopefully building them into the next generation of entrepreneurs and the next generation of great leaders in this country. And if we can do that, and if there's more people doing that, I think we'll start to see a lot of people that come from disadvantaged backgrounds, sort of backgrounds that you would not expect, to achieve great things.